What's up everybody, this is Wallace from A3Academy and today we are going to be talking about gene recombination and mapping. So I am going to be walking you through a recombination problem and we're going to construct a gene map and it's going to be awesome. So let's get started right away. So this is a Z-donk. A Z-donk is just a mixture of a donkey and a zebra. Now Z-donks can't have children, but we're going to assume that Z-donks can have children just so that I get to use the Z-donks in my examples. So these are how I'm going to describe my Z-donks. So we're going to use these letters that represent alleles here. So we're going to use the F star to mean purple fur and F to mean green fur. And so whenever I have a star next to a letter, that means it's the dominant allele. If you have a basic understanding of genetics, then you should know what alleles are and how genes work and how they work on the chromosome. So the dominant allele will mask out the recessive one. So F star is purple fur, which is the dominant allele. F is green fur, and that's the recessive one. Then we have B star, which is for big eyes, and that is dominant. And then B, which is normal eyes, that is recessive. So dominant, recessive, dominant, recessive. So suppose we had two Z-donks. On the left we had one Z-donk with purple fur and big eyes, and it was F star, F star, B star, B star. That means it is homozygous dominant in both categories. And on the right we have a Z-donk with green fur and normal eyes, and that has FFBB, and that is homozygous recessive in both categories. Now suppose that, just for kicks we decided to put the F and B genes on the same X chromosome. So F and B are now X-linked genes. The notation would look something like this. I have whether we're indicating the X or Y chromosome, and then we have the allele in the superscript. So on the left we have an F dominant and B dominant allele on the X chromosome and nothing on the Y chromosome, and then we have on the right, on our green for normalized Z-donk, we have an F recessive, B recessive on both chromosomes, both X chromosomes. So if we were to take a look at the chromosomes of these guys individually, they would look like this. So if you take a look at the left, the Z-donk on the left, he has F star, B star on the X chromosome, where the F and B genes are. And F star and B star are going to get expressed whether they're dominant or they are recessive, because there's nothing else on the Y chromosome that could possibly be blocking it out. So the Z-donk has an X chromosome and a Y chromosome, which means that it is a male. Now the Z-donk on the right has green fur and normal eyes, and it has two X chromosomes with a recessive F and B allele on both of them. Since it has two X chromosomes, it is a female Z-donk. And we know that if we want both of these Z-donks to have kids, it will donate one chromosome each to the child. So if we were to get them to have kids, the male Z-donk on the left can contribute either the chromosome with the F star and B star, both dominant alleles on one chromosome, or it can just donate a Y chromosome to the child. The Z-donk on the right has two chromosomes where both alleles are recessive. So all it can do is offer a chromosome where both alleles are recessive. So there are two possible outcomes when we're talking about children of these two Z-donks. Either the child will have two X chromosomes. On one X chromosome there will be both dominant alleles, and on the other there will be two recessive alleles. So it'll be heterozygous for both traits, and that would mean that it would be a purple Z-donk with large eyes, and it would be female. Or we could have a Z-donk with an X chromosome and a Y chromosome, and on the X chromosome there would be two recessive alleles for both F and B, which means that it would be a green Z-donk with normal eyes. So these are the only two children that could possibly come from this cross. So suppose we got these two Z-donks to have children, and suppose we got them to have, say, 1,000 kids, and we measured up and tallied up all the properties of all their children, and we found out the following. We found out that there were 398 with purple fur and big eyes. We got 371 children with green fur and normal eyes. We had 126 children with purple fur and normal eyes, and then we had 105 children with green fur and big eyes, and that is a total of 1,000 children. That sounds pretty complicated, so we're going to simplify it, we're going to break it down for you. So let's take a look at our parents first for a second. Both of these Z-donks have two different sex chromosomes, which means there are 4 different ways that each of these parents can contribute one chromosome each to the offspring. And these ways are shown here. So these are the 4 different ways. So if you take a look at the top, these top 2 both code for purple fur and big eyes. And these bottom 2 here, these 2 code for green fur and normal eyes. So those, obviously, you can see they account for the first 2 categories listed here. So if these are the only 4 combinations of chromosomes that are possible in the second generation offspring, and they account for these 2 types, then where do we get these 2? Obviously, it's not possible to have offspring with purple fur and normal eyes or green fur and big eyes because there's no way to combine the chromosomes of the parents so that you can get those properties. It's just not possible. Unless we have something like chromosomal crossover, and that's something that we talk about in a previous video. You should totally watch it. Chromosomal crossover is what allows genes to be switched between chromosomes that are homologous. So these 2 phenotypes come from when chromosomal crossover occurs, or basically when the alleles get switched up between homologous chromosomes. The phenotypes that come out of this chromosomal crossover, these are what are called the recombinant types. So purple fur and normal eyes and green fur and big eyes, these are what we call the recombinant types because we cannot get these phenotypes by just taking 1 chromosome from the mother and 1 chromosome from the father. We can, however, get these 2 phenotypes, and so we call them the parental types. So we've identified which are our recombinant types and which are our parental types. So now all we have to do is we need to use that information in some way. So it turns out that if you take the number of recombinant offspring and divide it by the amount of total offspring, you get this number called the recombinant frequency, or RF. So if we take a look at our example here, there were 126 with purple fur normal eyes and then 105 with green fur big eyes. These were the recombinant types. So if we add these 2 numbers together and divide it by our total, we would get 23.1%, which is our recombinant frequency, or RF. And 23.1% RF is equal to a 23.1 centimorgan, or 23.1 map unit genetic distance. And centimorgans, or a genetic distance, it's just a relative measure of a distance between 2 genes in a chromosome. And what that means is, if we took a look at our chromosome here, with our 2 genes that are on the same chromosome, the genetic distance between them is 23.1 centimorgans. And what we have just done is successfully constructed a genetic map of the X chromosome of the Z-dog. And now that we have successfully done that, that is all for today. I'm Wallace from A3 Academy, and as always, the more you know, the better you are.